Be very careful about this. There's someone in your life who is starting to understand your value, but the realization is coming much later than it should have. And what is happening right now in their mind is something they never expected to feel, because the moment they thought you would always be there, something changed. Now, in the next few minutes, I'll show you what made them realize your worth, the exact moment that their perception shifted, and what are they now afraid that might happen, or what they're afraid of. Also, in the end, I will reveal the most important thing, like what action will they take. Now, if this message found you today, it usually means there has been a shift in the energy between you and this person. Now, let's look at this, but first align with my energy by tapping on this card and leave your amen in the comments. And now pay attention to this. But before I explain what made them realize your worth, there's something happening in their mind right now that you need to understand. Because ever since this shift happened, one particular thought has been like repeating inside their head over and over again. And the reason that thought appeared is directly connected to the moment they finally began to see your value differently. So let me show you what actually triggered this realization. What made them realize your worth was not a dramatic moment, okay? It was the moment your energy changed. You stopped giving the same level of attention, you stopped trying to prove your place in their life, and when that shift happened, they suddenly felt something that they didn't expect: distance. Not because you disappeared, but because you just simply, your focus moved back a little to yourself. And that is when the thought started repeating in their mind. Maybe I underestimated them, he's thinking. Because when someone begins to feel your absence in a different way, they start noticing the very things that they once took for granted, which is in this case your patience, your loyalty, the effort that you made to keep the connection alive. And now those memories are starting to look very different to them. But the real turning point in this situation was a very specific moment looking at things, a moment when their perception of you suddenly changed. And the interesting part is that it didn't happen during a big conversation or any sort of event. It happened during something much quieter, something that made them pause and look at you differently for the first time. Because in that moment, they noticed something about your energy that they had never fully understood before. And once they saw it, they couldn't unsee it. So let's talk about the exact moment that their perception shifted. The moment their perception changed was the moment they realized you were no longer chasing the connection the same way. Your energy felt calmer, more grounded, more focused on your direction instead of trying to hold everything together. And when they noticed that shift, it created a sudden awareness inside them, because for the first time they understood something they had overlooked before. Now, you were not staying because you had no other options. You were staying because you cared. And once they recognized that, the entire connection started to look different to them. They began to see your presence as something meaningful rather than something guaranteed. And that realization is what started changing the way they think about you now. In the meantime, make sure you save this video for later, and now pay attention to this. The most important shift in this situation is not just that they are recognizing your value, it's what that realization is starting to make them fear. Because once someone truly understands the importance of a connection, a new question suddenly appears in their mind, and this question has been quietly growing in their thoughts. They are starting to wonder if they may have waited longer than they should have, maybe, and that thought leads to a very specific fear that they're now trying to ignore. So let's look at what they are actually afraid might happen. What they're afraid of is surprisingly simple. They're afraid that by the time they fully understand your value, you may already be moving forward. They see that your energy is changing, your attention is no longer focused entirely on them, you seem much calmer, independent, centered in your own direction, and that makes this person realize the uncomfortable. Your presence in their life was never guaranteed, and now they're beginning to imagine a possibility that they didn't consider before, the possibility that someone else might recognize the value they overlooked. And once that thought enters someone's mind, it creates pressure because suddenly they're no longer sure they still have the same opportunity they once believed they had. Now, if you feel drawn to my energy, feel free to join my membership in order to get a free reading and to be part of my VIP psychic circle. But before this reading ends, there is one more thing that matters more than everything we talked about so far. Because realizing your value is only the first step. The real question is what someone does after that realization. Do they stay silent or do they finally act on what they're feeling? Right now, this person is standing in that exact moment of decision, and what they're considering doing next reveals just how strongly this realization has affected them. So let's look at the action they're now thinking and talking about in their mind, in their energy with people around them. The action they are considering is reaching out to you in a way they didn't before, breaking the distance that has formed between you. They're starting to feel a sense of urgency because once someone understands they might lose something meaningful, hesitation becomes much harder to maintain. So this person is thinking about creating an opportunity to reconnect with you, starting a conversation, finding a moment to approach you differently than before, not from a place of control, but from a place of realization, because now they understand something they didn't fully see before. So your value was never ordinary. And the moment someone truly understands that, the instinct to act usually follows. Before you go, I want to invite you to share something with me. So every situation is different, and I always find it very interesting to hear how these energies are playing out in your life. If this message resonated with you, tell me your story in the comments. Tell me what's happening between you and this person. I read all of your comments, and I do my best to reply to as many of you as I can. Now that you understand what they're realizing and the action that they're thinking about taking, the next question is, why are they not contacting? And I made a reading about that, and you can watch it right here.